If you've ever wondered how to get into an airport lounge, then this video is for you. I'll explain how it all works, how you can get in, and which ones are worth it. In the US, you have three major type of airport lounges. So the first group is Priority Pass lounges. Then you have your airline lounges like Delta and United, and the last group is your credit card lounges, so that includes ones like Amex and Chase. Starting with Priority Pass lounges, if I had to guess, your home airport might have one of these, and that's because Priority Pass isn't one specific lounge, but it's a network of lounges, and there's over 240 just in the US. If you want to see if your home airport has any of these Priority Pass lounges, then you can go to the Priority Pass app or website and check there. For example, if I look up Seattle, you can see here that they have a Priority Pass lounge in Terminal A, and they also have one in the South Satellite Terminal. Even though I really like the Priority Pass lounges, most people would say that the best Priority Pass lounges are the ones located internationally, so compared to the US, they're just not as great. So even if your home airport has one of these, I would check out your other options to see what you have. The good thing about Priority Pass is that most travel credit cards give you access to this. So for example, the American Express Platinum gives you Priority Pass, and the Capital One Venture X also gives it to you. Depending on which card gives you Priority Pass access, you might be able to bring in guests into a lounge. But this is where it can get a little confusing because the guest policies are not the same across Priority Passes. So for example, if you have the American Express Platinum card, you might be able to bring in 2 free guests. The best way to check this is to look on the Priority Pass app and search up that specific lounge. It should give you more details there. If you have the Priority Pass through your Capital One Venture X card, then you can't bring any guests for free, but you can pay $35 to bring someone into a Priority Pass lounge. For airline lounges like United and Delta, these tend to be a lot better than the Priority Pass lounges, but there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. Since I fly mostly with Delta, I'll be covering mostly the Delta rules, but these rules generally apply to most other airline lounges too. If you want to get into any of these airport lounges, the first thing you'll need is a credit card that gives you access. So for example, if you want to get to a Delta lounge, then you either need the Delta Reserve card or the American Express Platinum card. For most of these airline lounges, you need to be flying that airline to be able to get into their lounge. So for example, if you're flying out of Atlanta, if you want to go into any of the Delta lounges, you'll need to make sure that you're flying on a Delta flight. Also, another requirement specifically for Delta is that you also have to be flying on a main cabin ticket or above. So if you bought a basic economy ticket, even if you're flying on Delta, you won't be able to get to the lounge. Since I have the American Express Platinum card, that means I get 10 visits a year to any of the Delta lounges. And how that works is once you enter a lounge, you start a 24-hour clock, and within that period, you can go to the Delta lounge as much as you want and only count as one visit. So a useful tip is that once you land, you can also go into a Delta lounge and it'll still only count as one visit. This is super useful if you're waiting for someone to pick you up or you're still hungry after your flight. For the credit card lounges, these are some of the nicest ones in the US, and these include ones like the Amex, Capital One, and Chase lounges. Unlike airline lounges, you don't need to fly on a specific airline to get into one of these lounges. As long as you have the right card, you should always be able to get into one before your flight. For example, I always get access to the Amex lounge in Atlanta through my Amex Platinum card, and this is really nice for people who don't care which airline they fly and they just want access to a lounge. For the Chase and Capital One lounges, they work in the same way in that you just need to have a certain card to be able to get in. So for Capital One, that's going to be the Capital One Venture X card you need, and then for Chase, it's going to be the Chase Sapphire Reserve card, and these tend to have higher annual fees than usual because they're travel cards. I would check your home airport to see if there's any of these credit card lounges. That's what I would focus on first, since it's the least restrictive and they tend to be nicer than the other type of lounges anyway. A tip for the Chase lounge is that if you have Priority Pass through any of your other credit cards, you can actually get into the Chase lounge once a year through this. You can think of it as a free trial, and it's a great way to check out the Chase Sapphire lounges before committing to a card. For example, when I was at LGA, I was able to visit the Chase lounge by using my Priority Pass through the Capital One Venture X card. I scanned my QR code like normal and they let me in. Now that we talked through the different types of airport lounges, I'll walk you through how I would decide which credit card to get for lounge access. Let's say you mainly fly out of the Atlanta airport. They have a Priority Pass, Amex, and Delta lounges there. If we take a look at the Priority Pass lounge in Atlanta, it's pretty small, so that means the lines get pretty long during the busy times, so the only options left are the Delta and Amex lounge. Since we're looking at Delta and Amex lounge access, then the Amex Platinum and the Delta Reserve card can get you into both. The Amex Platinum is $895 a year, while the Delta Reserve is only $650, so you would have to compare the benefits to see what works best for you. For me, I ended up choosing the Amex Platinum just because I got access to Priority Pass, Delta, and Amex lounges, and the credits work better for me. Thanks for making this far into the video. If you want to learn how to book cheap flights using your credit card points, then check out this video.